Tonight we're going to give an update on where the Stop Danskmmer campaign is, but at first I just want to get some technical stuff out of the way. This event is being recorded, so please turn off your camera if you don't wish to be featured in the recording. If you have any questions or comments, please type them into the chat box. We have a few hosts who can see the chat and will be able to field the questions to the appropriate speaker. If you have a question or comment to share after the program, you can send it to stopdanskmmercoalition@gmail.com and we'll get back to you. Once again, that's stopdanskmmercoalition@gmail.com and we will get back to you. And Kathy's here from Staten Island, nice. And Matthew, you can just put your name and where you're tuning in from if you want in the chat. Welcome, welcome. Okay, let's get started. My name is Jess Mullen and I'm with the Stop Danskmmer Coalition. I'll be sharing our campaign developments and then we'll hear from Haley Carlock, an attorney with Scenic Hudson, on where the legal process stands with Danskmmer. Then I'll be sharing our coalition timeline of what's ahead, and then I'll pass it off to Tara Vamos to talk about a statewide campaign with lots of organizations. It's called Climate Can't Wait. Thanks so much for joining tonight. And for those who just hopped on, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure that the appropriate person answers them. Okay, I'm going to start off with a huge thank you to everyone who's spoken at the hearings, who submitted comments to Stop Danskmmer. So for those of you who are kind of new to the fight, it's a proposed frack gas plant that would be located on the shore of the Hudson in Newburgh. So every time the chance for public input arose, our climate activist community across the state turned out, and we really knocked it out of the park each time. We've had thousands of thoughtful comments submitted, and hundreds of folks have given testimony at hearings, including last March and September for the Siting Board, and last August for the Department of Environmental Conservation, aka the DEC. The public's voice was what illustrated a clear opposition to Danskmmer, and that gave the DEC the political backing that they needed to make the precedent-setting leap of faith, according to DEC Commissioner Basil Sagos. So then, after the hearings in October, the DEC denied Danskmmer its permit, along with the Astoria gas plant permit. And it was groundbreaking, and everyone on this call was a part of that victory, I'm sure. But after the DEC denied Danskmmer's air permit, Danskmmer appealed the decision. And there's an appeal hearing process that will happen this winter. There's going to be a hearing just for the public on February 15th, and that's our time to shine. We're in a really good place, and the chance of the DEC's decision being overturned is not likely, but it's really important that we show support for the DEC's decision and turn out for this hearing and submit comments. So again, some dates to flag for everyone here are February 15th, which is the public hearing that has a registration deadline of February 11th, and the written comment deadline is February 22nd. And don't worry, we'll be sending you lots of information about this and you'll be able to see it in different formats and stuff like that. We just put together an easy to use comment form on our website, and we have an instruction guide with this info, and we'll be promoting all the resources in the coming weeks. We also have everything on our website, and if you're new to this fight and want to know more, our website is a wealth of information too. It's stoptheplant.org. We'll put all these links in the chat throughout the program tonight. And so we have lots of information there. Now I'm going to pass the mic to Haley, who can speak more on the legal process and answer questions. And so if you have questions, just put them in the chat and we'll make sure that they get answered. Thanks so much. Take it away, Haley.
Thanks, Jess. And I think I know many of you who are on the call today, but for those who may not know me, I'm Haley Carlock. I am the Director of Advocacy and Legal Affairs for Scenic Hudson. So it's really nice to see everyone turn out today. I'm going to try to keep my remarks pretty brief, kind of what you need to know and what I think folks would want to know about. But like Jess said, feel free to ask additional questions if you want more detail on any particular aspect. I'd be happy to try to speak to that. So the Danskmmer plant is subject to two main approvals in order for the plant to be allowed to be built and ultimately to operate. The main one is called a New York State Public Service Law Article 10 permit. It is a New York State permit, and that really governs the overall siting, construction, and operation of the plant. Article 10 is somewhat unique in that it supplants the local permitting process, so there's no like local site plan approval, zoning approval, those sorts of things which you would see with a typical like housing development or commercial development are not applicable here. The state kind of subsumes that role. Also, there is no seeker review for a plant like Danskmmer. The Article 10 environmental review takes the place of the seeker process, which could be a bad thing, but I have to say that the Article 10 environmental review is fairly comprehensive, arguably more so than seeker. So there are a lot of things that will need to be looked at, but again, it's not a local town or county agency that's looking at this. It is the state of New York. The Article 10 process is lengthy and convoluted. In this case, the informal pre-application part of the Article 10 process began all the way back in 2018. Hard to believe that's almost 4 years ago now. And Danskmmer first submitted its Article 10 application for approval of the plant back in December 2019. And so despite the fact that this has been going on for years, we still have not, really reached the crux of the Article 10 process. Article 10 involves both public input and public comment opportunities, and a lot of folks here may have already submitted, perhaps multiple times, rounds of written comments on the Department of Public Service website. And there's also been 2 different public statement hearings for the Article 10 process, both of which took place last year, I think in March and August, maybe. So there's plenty of opportunities for public input, but there's also a legal process. There's also a kind of a mini trial type proceeding that will take place where parties, including Danskmmer, including the state agencies who have purview over this plant, and interveners, which include groups like Scenic Hudson, the Sierra Club, Clearwater, Riverkeeper, and many others, are all formal interveners in the process who can fully participate in what amounts to a litigation. We've got expert witnesses, we submit evidence, we get to cross-examine the other parties' witnesses if we so choose, and then there's a legal briefing part. So that's kind of how the Article 10 process goes. And like I said, we have not even reached kind of the legal hearing part of that process, even though there's been a lot of public outreach and a couple of different public comment hearings. While that is kind of the overarching main approval process, in addition to that, New York State also has to issue Danskmmer, if it is to ever operate as a gas plant, what's called a Title V air permit, which is a permit that's actually issued under the Clean Air Act, the Federal Clean Air Act, but DEC, our state DEC, is delegated the authority to implement that program. So that permit is obviously much more narrow. It just focuses on air emissions, excuse me, and air pollution controls. And that process was happening in parallel with the Article 10 process. Something really important to note is that the siting board, which is the state entity that governs the Article 10 process and ultimately makes the decision whether to approve or deny an Article 10 certificate for Danskmmer, cannot approve the project and cannot issue that certificate for Danskmmer to build and operate its plant unless there is a valid Title V permit in place from DEC. Without that Title V permit, the siting board cannot allow the plant to move forward. Some folks here may remember that in the Title V air permit process, there was a comment period back last summer. Written comments were accepted, and there was one public statement hearing held. We had a ton of people turn out, which was great. And as a result of all of the people turning out and all of the great points and arguments that were made at the end of October, as Jeff mentioned at the beginning of the call, DEC denied Danskmmer its Title V air permit. And what was really unique about this denial is it rested completely not on kind of the numeric kind of air pollution standards, which are most typically applied, but it relied almost completely on a section of New York State's Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, or CLCPA, which says that state agencies must consider when issuing permits whether issuance of the permit might impede or frustrate achievement of the greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals in the CLCPA. And so DEC's denial, which was very strong, was really based on the fact that this plant is likely to increase greenhouse gas emissions within New York State and is therefore inconsistent with the CLCPA. That's really what led to the denial, which of course is a point that so many of you articulated so well at the public hearings and in your written comments. So thank you all very much, because that's really what led to that sweeping denial, which was a huge, huge victory for our campaign and for everyone who cares about air pollution issues in Newburgh and climate change writ large, a huge, huge victory. So we can all bask in that and be happy for a moment before, you know, we get to the next piece of news, which is that Danskmmer, following that decision, appealed it to the DEC and requested a full adjudicatory hearing on the air permit denial. And Danskmmer, or any developer in their position, has the right to request a full hearing, and DEC does not have the discretion to deny it. If they request a hearing, DEC has to hold a full hearing. So that's where we are now. And at the moment, DEC has just issued those comment deadlines that Jess mentioned, February 15th for the public statement hearing, super, super, super important, and February 22nd for the written comments. And then the legal process will kick off around the middle of March, when we'll begin kind of the conferencing process to figure out who the parties are going to be to the DEC hearing and what issues are ultimately going to be litigated. Because the main issue in the permit denial, as I mentioned before, is compliance with the CLCPA. And because in the Article 10 process, kind of that's emerged as really the core issue as well. A formal decision has not been issued by the judges that are overseeing these processes, but it looks very likely that whatever kind of legal hearing occurs, it will be one joint legal hearing, which will cover both the Article 10 permitting process and the Title V air permitting process. And it'll just be one big hearing with all of those issues and all of those witnesses and all of those lawyers. The dates for that have not been announced, but I'll just say, based on some comments made at a procedural conference we just had earlier today with the administrative law judges presiding over this proceeding, and the counsel for DEC said that based on his experience, he doesn't see any way that we get hearings on the calendar until almost a year from now. So this is a long process, and I just want to underscore before I go to answer questions or anything like that, that it is very hard to keep people engaged and mobilized when a process drags out like this. Folks have already shown up for, I think, 4 now public statement hearings, and it's been amazing. We've had an amazing turnout, hundreds of people. People have submitted written comments. There's over 10,000 comments on the Department of Public Service site. But, you know, we declared victory to some extent in October, which was accurate and deserved. And, you know, this issue just seems to be dragging on, and it's very challenging to keep impressing upon the general public that folks need to keep showing up. It will make a difference if suddenly the decision makers see that there's not hundreds of people showing up to speak out against the plant anymore. People have kind of moved on. That happens. They move on to a different issue, a different proposal. Those things really make a difference. And so, you know, all of you who have been so active in the campaign are so interested and engaged on this issue already. I think it's more important really than ever that everyone, you know, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to the various community groups that you're a part of, and make sure people show up. Because I always view the sort of public input process and the legal and evidentiary process as equally important. The powers that be need to look at the core facts and the legal arguments, and they need to have those to rely on in order to make the right decision. But they also are going to be influenced by public opinion and by how many people care about the issue, how many people are speaking out against the issue, what the relative kind of pro-Danskmmer and anti-Danskmmer numbers are. Those things really do make a difference in the decision at the end of the day. So that is it for my prepared remarks. Like I said, a really brief overview to give you a sense of the process you can expect. I don't know if folks have questions. I'd be happy to answer any of them the best that I can.
Haley, Joe asked, can Haley summarize Danskmmer's ground for appeal if time permits?
Yeah, sure. I can certainly summarize them as far as I know. Danskmmer actually in their petition for a hearing wasn't super specific on the issues that they want to litigate. We'll probably find that out at a later date. However, interestingly, I know Jess mentioned at the beginning that the developers of the Astoria gas plant also appealed their air permit denial, which happened on the same day as Danskmmer's. And coincidentally, they're represented by the same law firm. And they took the tack of having a much more developed petition. And it's the issues, while the specific facts are very different between the two plants, the general issues are almost identical. And I think it gives us a really good sense of what Danskmmer might argue. And the main argument that Danskmmer has is the CLCPA has never been litigated before. Nobody's ever relied on the CLCPA to deny a permit. And so the question that was raised in Astoria's petition that I expect Danskmmer to raise is whether DEC has exceeded its authority. It has a certain authority that has been delegated to it by EPA under the Clean Air Act to issue that permit. And by invoking a New York state law, not a federal law, that simply says more or less, hey, agencies, consider whether issuing a permit going to impede the goals of this act, the Climate Act. Have they exceeded their authority that they've been delegated by EPA? And I think that's really the core issue. And there's probably other ones relating to interpretation of the CLCPA and what the threshold is for denying a permit based on the CLCPA. And again, these are questions of first impression, which is always a huge opportunity, but also really scary for litigators because there's nothing out there to point to. There have never been any decisions made. And so whatever decision comes out of this case and Astoria like it is really going to shape how the CLCPA is enforced in the future. So this isn't just about Danskmmer, just about Astoria. It's going to either cement DEC and other agencies' authorities to invoke the CLCPA to stop bad projects that are going to exacerbate climate change, or it's going to weaken it.
Great, thanks so much, Haley. Are there any other questions from folks? Okay, Haley's going to be here all night so she can answer questions. If you have them, just put them in the chat and we'll probably know which ones are meant for her. Okay, now we're going to have some time dedicated to register for February 15th hearing. And again, just to clarify, at the public hearing on February 15th, it's the same specific sort of talking points that we had for the air permit hearing back in August. You can use, the same statement from that hearing. If you haven't spoken at that hearing, there's some helpful how-tos in our instruction guide. There's the link in the chat for the instruction guide. The instruction guide also has a link to register, and we're going to be updating that registration guide a little bit, tweaking it, but for right now, it's got the information that you need to register tonight. Yeah, so you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be a pro at public speaking. I hate public speaking, and I'm reading from a screen right now. That's one of the few benefits of COVID, I feel like. And so this hearing really is for the community members around the state. So that's us, and we really would love for you to get out there and, voice your thoughts. And if you want to just say your name, where you're from, and that you oppose Danskmmer, that's fine too. They love short and sweet. So the registration guide link is in there, and I think James will post the direct, he's our tech person over here, the direct link to shortly. I'm gonna play a tune while people take the time, about 2 or 3 minutes to register. And if anyone has trouble registering, I can either help them after the call or in the coming days. And just remember that when you do register, click I would like to make a statement to make sure that you're put on the list for people who want to make a statement. And now I'm going to play a tune while everyone has the chance to register, and we'll resume the call in a few minutes. Ooh, let me just, okay, hopefully folks got the chance to register. If you haven't, you can continue on that path. And then let me just pull up some stuff here. Okay, and then James, can you share your screen? Actually, before we go to that, there were some questions. So Haley, people have been reading from the DEC notice that if you've already made a statement, you might not be called on because the people who haven't made statements should be will be called on first. Can you tell us more about that and if it's still worth registering and speaking and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely, Jess. Thanks. In general, the agency calls people to speak in the order in which they've registered, with the exception of elected officials who, if they sign up and they identify themselves as an elected official, they typically get to go first. But here, what the DEC is trying to do is, they realize that there have already been multiple public hearings here. And even in the last public hearing they held, those who were in attendance until late into the hearing may recall one of the judges presiding over the hearing saying, we've heard enough from all of the Stop Danskmmer coalition people, we want to hear from somebody else, which can be really frustrating. But the agency's interest is in giving everyone a chance to speak. So that's what they're doing in allowing folks who haven't spoken yet to go first. That said, it is absolutely still worth registering for a couple of reasons. I think first and foremost is it makes a huge impression when the agency can say 800 people registered for the hearing. Even if only 300 end up getting to speak, and everyone knows how frustrating that can be, sitting there and not being called to speak, having that many registrants makes a huge difference. It shows how many people care and are opposed to the plant. They know that most of the people who sign up are folks who are not in favor of the plant. They're not the folks who want, the handful of folks who want to see the plant built. So it's so important to sign up. Second, we don't know how many new people are going to sign up. We hope there will be a lot. All of the groups working on this issue and in the coalition are doing their best to mobilize new folks from new communities to speak out against the plant. But especially as you get to kind of this point in a permitting process, in a campaign, you start getting diminishing returns in terms of how many new people you can bring on. So there may not be, we hope there will be, but there may not be that many new people, and you'll likely still get a chance to speak. And finally, if you're really concerned about perhaps not being allowed your chance to speak, if you're not called, you will be able to submit written comments, which are provided just as much weight. It can be less satisfying sometimes, and sometimes maybe a little bit more work to put something in writing, but you will have a chance to have what you want to say show up before a decision maker, even if you're not called to speak.
Great, thanks so much. Does anybody else have any questions? If they do, just put them in the chat and then we can ask Haley after we show this next slide. Did you want to share your screen? Great, so one moment while James shares his screen. Okay. There we go. Okay, can everybody see that? Cool. All right. Just have to move some stuff out of the way here. Okay, so here's what our coalition's winter and spring are looking like as of now. Of course, there might be more things added to our plate as stuff develops, which, it always does. But here's some key moments that we're planning for. Later this month, on January 25th, there's a big campaign launch for Climate Can't Wait. Tara's going to tell you more about the different stuff happening around the state for that in just a bit. Then we have our big time to shine in February with the public hearing and the public comment period. We'll send reminders out for both of those. And then in March and April, we'll be sharing different opportunities for public comment and for hearings on the proposed plan to implement the CLCPA, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And most of us have heard about the CLCPA, which is New York's groundbreaking state climate law. It's been instrumental against Danskmmer. Well, additionally, our state has a Climate Action Council, and they're planning out the ways that New York can meet the CLCPA's goals. They've drafted a scoping plan, and we have about the first 4 months of 2022 to submit comments about the good parts and the bad parts of the scoping plan. And there's also going to be a handful of hearings, which we can keep you posted about. And different member organizations are combing through the scoping plan, and from that, we'll have more information and focuses for comments. So please stay tuned for a variety of ways that you can help craft the way that our state climate policy is implemented. And now, and then also at the, in April will be an in-person Albany event for Climate Can't Wait, so stay tuned. And now I'll turn it over to Tara, who can talk more about that. Oh, unmute yourself, Tara, and we will have James stop sharing. There we go. Tara, are you ready? Are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, I will ask to unmute. I thought that you were a co-host earlier.
Sorry, my machine shut down and I had to rejoin the meeting, so then I no longer could unmute myself. Hi, everybody. I'm Tara Vamos. I'm so happy to see you all here. Like, we are such a powerful group, and we're really, we have pushed the state towards making a stance against operating fossil fuel plants. And we have the chance to amplify that on a bigger level and pass climate laws that would make this kind of plant not possible and would put us going in the right direction in terms of climate. There's a big coalition that's come together. It's not called a coalition, it's a collaboration of over 20 organizations. I think it's actually now over 40 organizations. It's called Climate Can't Wait 2022. And we are working on getting climate legislation passed in New York State this session. The New York State legislature passed the CLCPA climate law, which set out sort of deadlines of when we should phase out of fossil fuels in 2019. They didn't pass funding for it. And since they passed that, they've kind of just taken a slow back seat and not done anything. And there's a lot more work to do. So Climate Can't Wait is, you can see the set of bills at climatecan'twait.org. And we're really putting out a broad appeal and asking everybody to come together and ask legislators and ask the governor to pass climate legislation. The suite of 12 bills includes 5 bills that would have directly impacted whether we ended up having Danskmmer trying to build a power plant in our neighborhood. One of them, the Clean Futures Act, would have no new fossil fuel plants being able to be built unless a very extreme set of need could be proven, which there isn't. There's other things that we could be spending our money, because as ratepayers for energy companies, we're the ones that fund whatever sort of electricity generation gets put into place. There's another bill there that's proposed actions on environmental justice communities that would state that environmental impact statements would have to consider burdened communities. That also would have just knocked Danskmmer out of the running. There would have been no way that Danskmmer could have been proceeding whatsoever if that was in place. There's a bill in that package that is stopping electricity generating stations from being set up in order to just be able to power cryptocurrency mining operations. And that's coming up in the western part of the state, and it could easily come to the Danskmmer site too. And it's, nobody needs to live next to a polluting fossil fuel burning electricity generating plant just so that people can mine cryptocurrency. That would be an insane choice, but it would be really great to have it legislatively off the table, not legal. So what I'm asking is if everybody could go to climatecan'twait.org. There's a big action. We were planning on having a giant rally in Albany with buses coming from all over the state. And because of COVID, we ended up changing that and actually making it really a lot easier for everybody to participate in this launch. We're just trying to let the legislators and let Kathy Hochul know, let Governor Hochul know that we want climate policy, that all New Yorkers want climate policy. So if you can register at climatecan'twait.org to either attend, you could come in person to a rally in Yonkers at 3:30, to a rally in Albany at noon, or to a rally in New York City at noon. And I think there's some of us on this call that will be at all three actions, but there's also going to be a 12 p.m. call where you can join a call and together with a group of people, send some tweets, make some telephone calls, tag your representatives on social media, and let them, communicate with them that way that you're paying attention on climate issues and you want climate legislation. There's another call-in session like that at 6 p.m. And also, if you just want to take that information and just in the 15 minutes that works for you during that day, to make a call, to send a tweet, and just let Governor Hochul and especially the leader of the Senate, who is Andrea Stewart-Cousins, and the leader of the Assembly, who is Carl Heastie. The leader of the Senate and the leader of the House, they really set what gets done, because it doesn't matter who introduces a bill or how many people are in favor of it. If they don't put it on the calendar and vote on it, then it doesn't go anywhere. So we need them to know that we want climate policy. We want sane climate policy. So if anybody has any questions for me, that would be great. And if not, I hope that you'll all consider turning out to a meeting, or at least just sending a text. And I see that Stephen has a question. I think the questions have to be typed into the chat, and then Jess will read them.
Yeah, Stephen, if you can type your question into the chat, that would be great. Let's see. Can you, I guess, maybe tell us like a little bit about why those specific folks that we're going to be, meeting outside their office and stuff like that. Why them?
So Governor Hochul really sets the agenda and sets the tone for the whole legislative session. And she also is the one that will eventually vote yes or no on those bills if they get passed by the legislature. But the leader of the Senate and the leader of the House, they are the ones that determine which bills get considered and which bills get voted on by the entire House and the entire Senate. So just to pick an example that's kind of extreme, the New York Health Act last year had a majority of supporters in the House and a majority of supporters in the Senate, but because it didn't get put on the calendar to be voted on, it never got voted on. So therefore it didn't pass, and the governor never had to say yes or no on whether they were voting for them. So somebody asked in the chat, so the date for the demonstration, sorry, is the 25th. It's next Tuesday. So this coming Tuesday. And are there any of these bills that are more likely to get voted on and passed? That is an interesting question. And I would not want to, I so badly want them all to be passed that I'm that I'm gonna say that I hope they all get passed. There might be somebody else that's a little bit less rosy on them. I know that all of the people that are advocating for these different bills, that are lobbying for them, have made an agreement together to, like, if you're having a lobby meeting on the Green New Deal Act, to say, you know, I'm here to talk about the Green New Deal Act, but at the end of the meeting to say, by the way, we're also a part of this coalition. We do want legislation on all of these things. So I think that the unity between different groups on pushing forward these bills will hopefully get more of them passed. My dream thing would be to get the CLCPA funded, but to have the rest of it passed too. Is there somebody else that wants to speak to that? Jess, do you have more of a sense of it? Or I don't know if I see that Gordon is here and Emily Skydell is here. So there's other people that might be answering.
Jordan said no better sense than that. I mean, I think, you know, just going for the gold, and we'll see what happens, and, you know, trying the best and like supporting each other too, because there's different organizations working on different, you know, different pieces of policy. And then we'll see what happens, and we gotta, you know, try our best. And I think that the unified strategy is a really good one. And then were there any other questions for Tara? If so, we can bounce back to her. There's one for Haley. So let's see, Emily Ellison had asked if she registers to speak, should she still submit a comment?
Yes, absolutely. Comment early, comment often. You absolutely can submit both written and verbal comments. You can submit multiple written comments. I'm not suggesting anyone kind of spam the agency, but if you have something different to say that you haven't said before, you should really submit that comment. You know, there's nothing preventing you from doing so. And like I said, the written comments will sort of all be tallied up at the end. So you want to have a high number, and the hearings, you know, hearing by hearing, it's important to have a lot of people show up and a lot of people there to speak. And I always think that the verbal comments are a special opportunity to really have the judges that are presiding over the hearing think about things rather than their usual technical or legal lens. Think about how it's actually affecting people's lives and people's families and people's communities. So sometimes you can focus more on that stuff for the verbal comments. And if you have more specific kind of policy focused arguments, factual arguments, you can put those in your written comments.
Oh, great. Thank you. And then Emily Skydell, who's also working on Climate Can't Change, is she unmuted? I requested her to be unmuted, but if she's not, let's.
I think I am.
Oh, yep, we can hear you. So
Okay,
she can speak more on stuff.
Hi. Yeah, I was just going to directly respond to the question about like, or just the kind of discussion about, you know, which bills are most important. I think maybe this was already mentioned, but I just wanted to add that the big impetus for this Climate Can't Wait collaborative was that we realized that lots of groups realized, like, wow, there's so many great climate bills, and we haven't been able to pass any of them. The legislature had actually blamed the climate movement on why they hadn't passed any legislation. They said that you all won't agree on which one is important. You know, you're not unified enough. And it's a ridiculous claim. And so we realized at the end of the day, they need to feel the heat for the fact that they are not passing climate legislation. And so that's why this is so important. And we're hoping that in April, there will be a really big mobilization with, you know, all of you, however many of you can come, and from all over the state, because we've seen in other spaces, like with immigration issues, housing issues, that, you know, when you can get a really big, broad coalition to show up to Albany and make a huge splash on an issue, that's really what drives it home. So I just wanted to add that in, that like this is really about us all coming together and showing the people power of the climate movement, regardless of which of those 12 bills, you know, you feel most compelled toward.
Great, thanks so much. And I'll be in Albany at noon on the 25th. And I look forward to finding out more about April too, in person as it develops. If anyone has any other questions, they should put them in the chat. Do folks want to take a minute to maybe RSVP to January 25th? Because we're, you know, a little bit ahead of schedule. If somebody can put the link into the chat, we can make sure that everybody sees it. We had it up, but then a lot of stuff has been mentioned. Here we go, link here to register. Here we go. Okay, so for January 25th, you don't even have to leave the comfort of your own home. You can go to the link that's in the chat, and you can register to, you know, do whatever you like as far as the nice list of ways to take part. And then Kathy felt that the most powerful testimony was given by people directly affected by the plants. That's a comment that somebody just made. So I wanted to relay that. Let's take a minute to just RSVP to the January 25th. Oh, and then I see, Emily, your hand is up, but I think that maybe it's been taken care of. Okay. Let's see, are there any other questions? Okay. All right, I think that we are coming to the close of our call tonight, and we'll let you all get back to your evening. And a special thanks to everyone who joined the call. And if you have any other questions moving forward, I can put a good email in the chat for you to reach out with questions or comments, or if you want to get involved with either January 25th, Climate Can't Wait, or with the Stop Danskmmer Coalition. And then additionally, we'll be sending out more information about the upcoming actions and reminders for important dates and news updates. So if anyone needs help with registering, I can stay on after the call. Just let me know in the chat, or if you can't do it right now, but you do need help, you can also email the email address that I'll put into the chat if you have any further questions about Danskmmer. And Kathy asked if we'll be sending talking points. Actually, if you go to the link, the information guide, there's talking points there. Additionally, our website, if you go to stoptheplant.org, which I will put in, I don't know if this link's going to work because I'm just typing it. But if you go to that link, then you can visit that, and then you can see the instruction guide there. And then you can go to the instruction guide. It'll have tips for speaking. It'll have the direct way to register, and it'll also have talking points. And additionally, if you go to stoptheplant.org, you can also submit an easy comment, or you can make your own, and we kind of just made it a little bit easier than having to do it yourself. And if that is it, then we can call it quits, and I'll still be on here in case anybody needs help registering. They can just send me a message here in the chat, and I will put that stoptheplant.org. You should put that at, you know, bookmark that as your favorite website. It's a beautiful site. And thank you everybody for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your night.